AI. It's everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's evolving so fast. Feels like every day there's some new breakthrough or development. How do you even keep up?
It is a lot to keep track of, that's for sure. It can feel like trying to drink from a fire hose sometimes.
Right. I mean, just the sheer volume of information out there. Articles, reports, analyses. It's overwhelming. So I'm really glad we had this time to do a deep dive together, go through some of the key sources. You sent me a bunch of really fascinating stuff, and I'm excited to unpack it all.
Yeah, we've got a lot of great material to work with. We have a report from Columbia University that really digs into AI and the future of work, a really thought-provoking article from Science on how AI is being used for reasoning, an interesting analysis from Andreessen Horowitz about the top AI consumer apps out there right now, plus a white paper from the World Economic Forum all about how AI is transforming industrial operations. Oh, and we've got some perspectives from China on AI development as well.
So we're talking manufacturing, jobs, AI safety,
Yeah.
the whole spectrum.
Exactly. We're going to look at how AI is impacting us now and what we might expect in the future.
This isn't just a quick summary either. We're going to really dive into the details, uncover some surprising facts, and try to make sense of it all for our listeners.
Yeah, the goal is to give everyone a clearer understanding of where things stand with AI and what it all means for them.
So shall we jump right in?
Absolutely. Let's start with something that really caught my eye in the World Economic Forum report. This idea of embodied AI.
Embodied AI. I don't think I've come across that term before. What's that all about?
So it's basically the idea that AI is moving beyond software and is starting to have a physical presence in the world.
Okay, so we're not just talking about algorithms running on computers anymore.
Right. The WEF report talks about AI agents, and they distinguish between two types. Virtual AI agents, which are the ones we're more familiar with, operating in the digital world, and then there are embodied AI agents.
Embodied, meaning
Yeah.
like they have a physical body.
Yeah, exactly. These are AI systems that are integrated into physical systems like robots, for example.
Okay, so instead of just making decisions in the cloud, these AI agents can actually interact with the real world.
Precisely. And the WEF report says this is creating a whole new era in robotics.
How so? What's different about these robots?
Well, they can perceive their environment using sensors, and then they can act on that information in much more complex ways using actuators, which are basically like the robot's muscles.
So they're not just those clunky industrial robots we've seen in factories for years, just doing the same repetitive task over and over.
No, not at all. Those traditional robots were mostly rule-based, meaning they had to be programmed very specifically for each task. But embodied AI, it introduces a whole new paradigm.
And what's changed? Why are these robots different?
A lot of it has to do with what they call training-based robotics. They use techniques like reinforcement learning, where the robot essentially learns through trial and error. It gets rewarded for doing the right thing, and over time, it gets better and better at a task. And they also use advanced vision systems, so these robots can actually see and understand their surroundings.
It's almost like they're learning in a similar way to how humans learn.
Yeah, there are definitely some parallels there. And this allows the robots to become much more versatile. They can adapt to different tasks and handle variations that would have thrown off those older robots. The WEF report gives some good examples, things like bin picking.
Bin picking.
Yeah, imagine a robot having to sort through a bin of random objects and pick out specific ones. That's incredibly difficult for a traditional robot to do because there's so much variation. But these new robots, they can learn to do it really well. And there's also kitting.
Kitting, like putting together a kit.
Exactly. Assembling different parts, again, something that traditional robots struggled with because every kit might be slightly different. But these robots, they can adapt.
So these robots are not just pre-programmed, they're actually learning and getting better over time. That's really impressive. Now, when we were looking at the sources, you mentioned that one of the sources from China talked about new quality productive forces, which is quite a mouthful. I'm curious, how does embodied AI tie into that concept?
Oh, that's a really interesting connection. The source from China highlights how AI-driven automation, particularly in manufacturing, has the potential to lead to huge increases in productivity. And it's interesting because this echoes something that the Columbia University report also mentions. They say AI tools will significantly increase productivity across a variety of sectors.
So it's not just hype, there's real evidence suggesting that AI can make us much more productive.
It seems that way. And embodied AI with these advanced robots is playing a key role in that. Think about all the routine tasks in a factory that can now be automated. Material handling, quality control, even optimizing the production parameters in real time, All of that contributes to these productivity gains.
So fewer errors, things get done faster, and we're using resources more efficiently. That's quite a potential impact. Now, the Columbia University report, they also talk about this idea of leapfrogging by emerging and developing economies, EMDEs, basically countries that are still developing. How does embodied AI fit into that picture?
Well, the idea is that if these countries can embrace these new technologies, they might be able to skip over some of the traditional, more labor-intensive stages of industrial development.
Right.
They could potentially achieve a much higher level of productivity much more quickly.
So it's like a shortcut to becoming a more advanced economy.
In a way, yes, it's about harnessing the power of AI to accelerate their development.
That's really fascinating. So embodied AI, it's bringing a new level of intelligence and adaptability to robotics with the potential for major productivity boosts and a faster path for developing economies. But, with all this increased power comes a really important question, and that's how do we make sure that it's used safely and responsibly? And that brings us to the realm of AI safety and governance and that really cool science article about large reasoning models.
Yeah, that's a critical point. These AI systems, especially large language models, LLMs, they're becoming incredibly powerful. We really need to understand how they're arriving at their conclusions and make sure that they're aligned with human values. And these large reasoning models, LRMs, they offer a potential way to address that.
Okay, LRMs, large reasoning models. I'm not familiar with that term. How are they different from the LLMs we hear so much about, like GPT-4o?
So the article explains that LRMs are designed to perform certain types of reasoning by generating what they call chains of thought. It's like instead of just giving you an answer, they show you their work step by step. They explain how they arrived at that conclusion.
Okay, so it's like we get to peek inside their minds and see how they're thinking.
Sorta, yes. And this is really important because it helps us understand whether the AI is actually reasoning or just mimicking human reasoning based on the data it was trained on.
That's a really interesting point. So they might be getting the right answer, but for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. The article talks about this idea of meta-mimicry. It's like the AI is just really good at recognizing patterns in the data, but it doesn't necessarily understand the underlying concepts.
So how do they actually build these LRMs? What's the process?
They actually start with a pre-trained base model, which is basically an LLM like GPT-4o. These base models have been trained on huge amounts of text, and they're really good at predicting the next word in a sequence. But then they do what they call post-training, where they specifically train the model to generate these chains of thought.
So they're essentially teaching the AI to think in a more structured, logical way.
Right. And they use a combination of supervised learning, where they give the AI examples of good reasoning, and reinforcement learning, where the AI gets rewarded for generating accurate chains of thought.
It's like they're giving the AI a crash course in logic. But then, as you said, the question remains, is it genuine reasoning or just really good at mimicry?
That's a debate that's still going on in the field, and it's something we need to be very careful about as we develop these increasingly powerful AI systems.
I bet these LRMs take a lot of computing power to run, generating all those chains of thought.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The article points out that LRMs can be very computationally expensive because they're generating so much text, hundreds or even thousands of reasoning steps. It's a significant factor to consider.
And that ties into the whole issue of AI governance, right? The more complex these systems become, the more important it is to have transparency, to understand how they work, and to ensure that they're being used safely and ethically.
Exactly. And we need to make sure that access to these technologies is equitable, that it's not just concentrated in the hands of a few powerful entities. And the article highlights the importance of openness. They mention DeepSeek, an AI company that has actually released its model weights and training data.
So they're basically letting everyone see how their AI was built.
Right. That kind of transparency is really important for building trust and ensuring that these systems are accountable. And it ties back to what the Columbia University report was saying about the digital divide. We need to be careful that AI doesn't just exacerbate existing inequalities.
Absolutely. So it's not just about building more sophisticated AI, it's also about making sure that it's developed and deployed in a way that's beneficial for everyone. Speaking of which, let's shift gears a bit and talk about something that I think is on a lot of people's minds these days. The impact of AI on jobs and the workforce. This was a major theme in both the Columbia University report and in the perspectives from China.
Yeah, it's a topic that's generating a lot of discussion, and understandably so. AI has the potential to transform the way we work in some pretty fundamental ways.
It's that classic question, right? Are the robots going to take our jobs?
Well, the Columbia University report presents a nuanced perspective. They talk about two opposing views. The techno-utopians who believe that AI will lead to increased productivity and the creation of new, better jobs. And then there are the techno-pessimists who fear widespread job displacement as machines become capable of doing more and more of the work that humans currently do.
So two very different visions of the future.
Exactly, but the report makes a really important point, which is that the ultimate impact of AI on employment won't just be determined by the technology itself. It's going to be shaped by the choices we make, the
Yeah.
policies we put in place, our ethical considerations, and our ability to adapt and innovate.
So it's not a predetermined outcome. We have agency in this.
Absolutely. And the report also emphasizes the vital role that education and training will play in this transition. They talk about the need for universities to integrate AI into their curricula to train students to work alongside these new technologies.
So we need to prepare the next generation for an AI-powered world.
Exactly. And it's not just about teaching them technical skills. It's about fostering critical thinking, problem solving, and creativity, the kinds of skills that will be essential in an AI-driven workplace.
And it's not just about the next generation, is it? What about people who are already in the workforce?
Yeah, there's a huge need for upskilling and reskilling programs to help current workers adapt to these changes. And that's something that both the World Economic Forum report and the sources from China emphasize. The Chinese sources particularly highlight the challenge of a lack of AI-related skills among their workforce.
It sounds like continuous learning is going to be more important than ever. Now, the Columbia University report also raised some specific concerns about the potential impact of AI on emerging and developing economies.
Right. They're concerned that AI could actually widen the digital divide,
Yeah.
that the benefits of AI could be unevenly distributed, primarily benefiting higher income countries while potentially exacerbating existing inequalities in developing economies.
So it's a double-edged sword. AI has the potential to lift people out of poverty, but it could also leave some people further behind.
Exactly. And the report highlights some of the factors that could contribute to this, things like limited access to technology, insufficient infrastructure, and a lack of data in local languages. And they even cite a study by the IMF suggesting that up to 40% of jobs in emerging markets could be negatively impacted by AI.
Wow, that's a sobering statistic. Now, what about China? What did the sources from China say about how AI might impact their labor market?
Well, there was an analysis from Goldman Sachs that suggests that while AI is likely to become a major driver of economic growth in China, its impact on the job market might be a bit different compared to the US.
How so?
They say that because China has a larger proportion of manual labor jobs in sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and construction, those jobs might be less immediately susceptible to automation compared to the more white-collar, knowledge-based jobs that are prevalent in the US. So the initial impact might be less severe.
So the type of jobs that are most at risk from AI-driven automation will vary depending on the structure of a country's economy.
Exactly. But the analysis also predicts significant job displacement in certain sectors in China, especially finance and professional services. So it's not like China is immune to these changes.
It seems like regardless of where you are in the world, certain types of jobs are going to be transformed by AI. But the Chinese sources also highlighted another interesting factor, which is China's aging population.
Yeah, that's a really important point. They suggest that AI and robotics could actually help address the challenges of a shrinking workforce by automating tasks that might otherwise go unfilled.
So in a way, AI could help mitigate some of the negative economic consequences of an aging population.
Potentially, yes. It's an area where AI could have a really positive impact.
Now let's go back to the World Economic Forum report for a moment.
Mhm.
They had some interesting things to say about how AI might reshape jobs in the industrial sector, particularly with the rise of embodied AI.
Right. They talk about a shift from humans being the operators of machines to becoming more like AI-enabled orchestrators.
Orchestrators, what does that mean?
It means that instead of directly controlling the machines, humans will be overseeing the process, making sure everything is running smoothly and intervening when necessary. They'll be using their judgment, problem-solving skills, and creativity to guide the AI systems.
So it's not about replacing humans entirely. It's about augmenting their capabilities and changing the nature of their work.
Precisely. And they give a specific example, a global wheel manufacturer. The technicians there, they used to be focused on the day-to-day operation of the production line, but now they're more focused on identifying the root causes of problems and coming up with solutions.
So they're doing more high-level strategic thinking.
Exactly. And the supervisors, they're using AI insights to help them make better decisions. So it's a shift from manual execution to more analytical and problem-solving roles.
It sounds like AI is actually making those jobs more interesting and more fulfilling.
It certainly has that potential. And the WEF report also emphasizes how AI can empower workers by giving them access to better information, real-time data, and predictive analytics.
So they have the tools they need to make better, faster decisions. But, as we've discussed, this all requires a big investment in education and training, both for the next generation of workers and for people who are already in the workforce.
Absolutely. We need to make sure that everyone has the skills they need to thrive in an AI-driven world.
Okay, now let's talk about the unsung heroes of all of this, the people who are actually making it all happen,
Hmm.
the engineers. The Columbia University report had some really interesting things to say about the crucial role that engineering plays in AI development and deployment.
It all starts with the engineers, doesn't it? They're the ones who are building these complex systems, figuring out how to make them work, and then putting them into practice.
And the report highlighted just how important computational power is in this whole process. We're talking about specialized computer chips, massive data centers, huge amounts of energy consumption.
Right. And the report even says that computational power is a predominant factor driving the AI industry, particularly in the private sector.
It makes you realize just how much engineering expertise goes into building and maintaining these systems.
And then there's the whole issue of data. The report talks about how the quality and availability of data is crucial for training AI models. And they point out that there's a huge disparity in data resources between high-income countries and those emerging and developing economies.
So that creates a challenge for those countries trying to catch up in the AI race.
Exactly. And it also raises the issue of bias in AI models. If the data that's used to train the AI is primarily from one part of the world, then the AI might not work as well for people in other parts of the world.
That's a really important point. So engineers also have to think about how to develop AI systems that are fair and inclusive.
Absolutely. And that requires innovative approaches to data collection, model training, and evaluation.
Now, the World Economic Forum report also talked about the engineering challenges of implementing AI in industrial settings.
Right. They emphasized the need for a strong foundation, both organizational and technological, to make sure that AI adoption is successful. And that includes a lot of different things, integrating IT and OT, which is the operational technology that controls industrial equipment.
So making sure that the AI systems can actually talk to the machines on the factory floor.
Exactly. And then there's setting up reliable data pipelines, creating user-friendly interfaces so that people can actually use these AI tools effectively. And then, of course, there's cybersecurity.
Making sure that these systems are secure and protected from hackers.
Yeah, it's all connected. And then when you start talking about embodied AI, those robots we were discussing earlier, the role of engineering becomes even more central.
How so?
Well, as the WEF report points out, deploying robots in real-world environments where they're interacting with humans is a really complex engineering challenge.
It's not like those controlled environments in a lab.
Exactly. You have to think about safety, reliability, and making sure that the robots can handle all the unexpected things that might happen in a dynamic environment. And that requires a deep understanding of mechanics, electronics, software, and of course, AI.
So it's really the engineers who are bridging the gap between the theoretical potential of AI and its real-world applications.
Absolutely. They're the ones who are taking these amazing ideas and turning them into tangible solutions that can benefit society.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about how AI is transforming industries with embodied intelligence, the challenges of AI safety and reasoning, the potential impact of AI on jobs and the workforce, and the essential role that engineering plays in all of this.
It's been a fascinating conversation, and I think it highlights just how much is happening in the world of AI right now.
And it's only going to accelerate from here. The AI revolution is still in its early stages, and there's so much more to come.
That's what makes it so exciting. And a little bit daunting, to be honest.
Yeah, there's definitely a sense of, like, we're at a turning point. The choices we make now are going to have a huge impact on the future. And it makes you wonder, what kind of skills are going to be most valuable in an AI-driven world? What should we be teaching our kids? What should we be learning ourselves?
Those are big questions, and I don't think they're easy answers. But it's something we all need to be thinking about.
Absolutely. And it's a conversation that we need to keep having as the world of AI continues to evolve. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Thanks for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And for all you listening out there, keep exploring, keep learning, and stay curious about the future of AI.